Hi. We're going to read a very familiar text from Micah chapter 4, verses 2 and 3 and 6 and 7. And many nations will certainly go and say, "Come, you people, and let us go up to the mountain of Jehovah, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will instruct us about his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion law will go forth, and the word of Jehovah out of Jerusalem. And he will certainly render judgment among many peoples, and set matters straight respecting mighty nations far away. And they will have to beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning shears. They will not lift up sword, nation against nation, neither will they learn war any more. In that day is the utterance of Jehovah, I will gather her that was limping, and her that was dispersed I will collect together, even her whom I have treated badly. And I will certainly make her that was limping a remnant, and her that was removed far away, far off, as a mighty nation. And Jehovah will actually rule as king over them in Mount Zion, and from now on and into time indefinite.
Well, I think we can see from the beginning that this is the same text in not totally the same, but mostly the same as in Isaiah chapter 2. And you have some of the same problems as you have in Isaiah chapter 2, namely that in the first verse, which is not in the part that we like to quote, it says this: "It will come about in the last days that the mountain of the house of Yahweh will be established as the chief of the mountains. It will be raised above the hills, and peoples will stream to it." But that thought is also in Isaiah, but we tend to read right past it. So when it comes to God straightening out the affairs of the nations and people flocking to Jehovah one day, that part is all part of our gospel if we're Jehovah's Witnesses. But in the context again, it's about a restoration of Zion, the mountain of the house of Yahweh.
And it differentiates between Israel and other nations. So there's still other nations in existence. And Israel is still in existence.
Yeah. So when
and specific locations given, Jerusalem and Zion.
Zion. The word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Now, of course, that had some fulfillment in Acts chapter 2. With Pentecost, the first gospel went forth from literal Jerusalem. Even though Christ had died, it was still locally fulfilled. Now,
and when you got to 6 and 7, you end up talking about Israel's disbursement. They're being removed, they're being collected together now. So this does definitely show you the context is about Israel.
"I will assemble the lame and gather the outcasts." Well, yes, who are these lame and outcasts? Well, they're the people that he scattered across the world and have been, for the most part, scattered across the world now for over 2,000 years. Long before the second exile, most of them were already in exile. But who are these people that he's afflicted? Now, I think I stick on that particular phrase. "Those whom I have afflicted," it says in the New World Translation, treated badly.
Yeah, I have treated badly.
So badly, I would suggest that many Jews, maybe millions of Jews today, are effectively either official atheists or agnostic when it comes to their ancestral God and religion. Because they believe that God has treated them, if he exists, so badly that they can no longer believe in the promises of their Old Testament.
Yeah.
So modern Jewish unbelief, which we now complain about and say, well, that disqualifies them from being God's people.
Yeah, it's because they receive justice, that they're, justice in the sense that God acts on unfaithfulness, but at the same time he gives grace.
And does it help their unbelief that the nations that persecute them the worst are often those that are called Christian nations?
Yeah, that should display grace.
Yeah, and we shouldn't omit two verses that are generally left out of here. Verse 4 says, "Each of them," these peoples that are one day going to be worshippers of Jehovah, "each of them will sit under his vine and under his fig tree, with no one to make them afraid, for the mouth of Yahweh of hosts has spoken." And we used to use verse 5 as a year text back in the 70s. This is what it said. Though all the peoples walk, each in the name of his God, as for us, we will walk in the name of Yahweh our God, forever and ever.
I remember that, yeah.
So Jehovah's Witnesses claim that as a year text. But can you think of another literal nation that still has its ancestral God and is still around today? The Jews are the only, and I knew this as a witness, the Jews are the only people I could see, literal people that lived on earth, an ethnic group, that still had their ancestral religion. Now, that may be true of Hindus.
And their distinctiveness. And with no land.
With no land.
Staying in existence with no land.
No government, no priesthood.
And keeping separate.
Yeah. So that's another text, Hosea 3, we should get into one of these days, right? One more thought from here, and that is that in verse 8, this struck me, and I don't think I even recognized this until I was already well on my way out of the watchtower. It's one of the few mentions of a watchtower in the Old Testament. It says, "And as for you, tower of the flock, hill of the daughter of Zion, to you it will come, even the former dominion will come, the kingdom of the daughter of Jerusalem." So in the context of this prediction of one day the law going forth from Jerusalem, it also mentions the kingdom coming. And in the context of a tower of course was used to guard and to watch over the flock. The flock here is Israel.
To warn, yeah.
So I thought how perfect that the watchtower and the kingdom are brought together in a promise that's very familiar to us even as Jehovah's Witnesses.
And verse 7 said that Jehovah would rule over them in Zion into time indefinite.
The New American Standard says, from now on and forever.
Yeah. So
where will Yahweh reign?
Has to be fulfilled.
It looks like here he will reign on earth forever.